owlbear's screech echoes through the dark valley and mist-shrouded forest, piercing the quiet night to announce the death of its prey. Feathers cover the thick, shaggy coat of its bear-like body, and the limpid pupils of its great round eyes stare furiously from its owlish head. Welcome to the Ecological Bestiary, where we treat the monster manual like a field guide and apply real biology to fantasy worlds. Today we are tackling the owlbear, an apex predator and beloved Dungeons & Dragons beast. We're going to try and connect to actual owls, bears, ecology, and conservation. Joining me at the table today are fellow fantasy nerds and nature lovers, Mike, Rachel, and Cassie. Rachel, you want to start us off?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Arbour. I am the founder and CEO of Gaia Scholastic, and I also am the New York State lead for Subject to Climate. Our missions are to integrate climate and environmental education into the regular learning experiences of students. So this is a really fun, very nerdy application to that. I myself have a big background in nerdology. Born and raised Harry Potter fan and Lord of the Rings, obviously. And then my husband introduced me to D&D and board games, and now we do Ren Fair things. And yeah, it's just a pleasure to be in this space mixing the two worlds.
Mike, you want to go?
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm a environmental science teacher. I teach biology. I work with a couple field classes. I work with whale shark conservation out in Mexico and terrapins in my home state, New Jersey. I love the nerd world, so welcome all you biologists, all you fellow nerds. My nerdom stretches pretty deep with some Legend of Zelda tattoos and growing up and playing video games and board games and the lifelong DM, the forever DM curse, and a lot of D&D campaigns and long-term player for Dungeons and Dragons. I love the lore. I love all things fantasy and nerdy.
Cassie?
I'm Cassie Klein. I'm based in Orlando, Florida, and I'm a social scientist that works in wildlife conservation and a formal zoological educator. My background started probably because I grew up riding horses. And so I would read any book that had horses in them. And one day I found a book by Tamara Pierce called Wild Magic that had horses on the cover. And I was sold into fantasy. From there, joined the fencing team in high school and got really into swords and swordsmanship and translated that into historical European martial arts, which we call HEMA now today.
And I'm Kevin Madison. I am an environmental biologist at Miami University and absolutely love Dungeons and Dragons. Grew up reading Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, of course, and Narnia and Forgotten Realms books and all these classic things, and played second edition and now played some fifth edition. Had a long break in between, but definitely excited about this to talk with you guys, just like share love of all these things and try and relate it to the real world too, because the real world is so magical in its own way. So we're going to jump into the owlbear and what the monster manual actually says about it. And then from there, go into a little bit of the biology in the real world and how that might connect. Mike, do you want to give us some lore about the owlbears?
Yeah, so owlbears are one of the almost original creatures in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. They were first introduced in about 1975, and they kind of got the idea of a little plastic miniature, which looks nothing like the owlbears that we kind of know and love and fear in the world of D&D, especially those first level characters. This is like game ending for them. But it was this little plastic, little miniature that stood, I think, on two legs and had this really bird-like head. And that they kind of took that and stretched it into our four-legged, feathered-covered, owl-headed bear. We see kind of different transitions of the owlbear as we go from edition to edition to edition, where we see beak attacks and we see claw attacks and we see keen sight, so being able to really kind of focus in and have advantage on smell and advantage on sight attacks and multi-attack. But now as we move into 2024 game manuals, they remove the beak attack, which is almost a little bit interesting if we're going to talk about the biology of it. Why is there no more beak attack versus just a rend attack? which is really kind of an interesting take on them. So yeah, it's a little bit about the owl bears.
Thank you. Yeah, nice. So we thought it'd just be fun to roll for initiative for our science facts and what we thought about owl bears. So let's all do that, and then we'll just go into our factoids relating to real life biology.
For those of you who are aspiring nerds, what rolling for initiative is we're going to use a die 20, and we're just going to figure out who has the highest roll and who's going to go first. So I have a special magical celestial looking die. Does anyone have a special die they're working with?
This is my forever DM metal die.
Oh.
Yeah. This is my player ender.
And I'm rolling a digital die, so you don't even need your own.
I just rolled a nat 1.
Oh no.
Oh.
Kevin knows nothing about owl.
I forgot everything.
I got a 3. Kevin, we missed class together.
Yeah.
I've got
We were
no
out at the
Kevin,
tavern.
so I'm
Yeah.
above the standard at least.
And I got an 8.
So Mike, you ended up with the highest, or was it Cassie?
Yeah, I think me on the 11, on the sad 11.
Wow.
All right, take us away.
So where I feel about owl bears, so we've got the history of you have a mage, and this mage has taken 2 different animals or polymorph or whatever other spell that's going to have happened in the Feywild, right? And you've matched together these 2 animals, ideally trying to pick the best traits of both species, right? So you have the bear traits, and they really reference the owlbear being this tenacious hunter. So right there, I'm going to rule out the biology of sun bears and panda bears. Like, I'm going to rule them out. I'm really thinking that they're gearing these towards Kodiak, Grizzly, Polar. Like, we're really focusing on those types of species. So we're looking at a really large animal, substantial mass, right? And feathers and heads and beaks of birds, but we don't really see them fly. And when in the editions in which we're seeing them fly, their speed is like 5 feet. So it's more like gracefully falling, if anything, right?
5 feet. Wow.
It's this, yeah, it's like, I'm flying, look at me, right? How majestic. But so I really don't think we're looking at hollow bones, especially if claw attack. Yeah, we do see things like secretary birds in which they're stomping their prey, or ostrich, which are, in their disputes or protection they're using their legs to get powerful legs, right? But in support of a large animal like a bear, Kodiak, or Polar, right? That's a whole lot of mass.
Whoa, nice. What do you got, Cassie?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I'm thinking for the feathers, maybe they're there to attract a mate, because feathers aren't always for flying. Or maybe it's a cooling mechanism, running around in the hot forest in the summer, because feathers are much easier to help you cool down than fur is. So the feathers can ventilate and help them cool down. So they're not necessarily for flying. There are plenty of birds that don't fly and have feathers still. Or it's just leftover evolutionary trait from their ancestor owls. That's possible too. I'm thinking a little bit about how they move and what they're looking for. So if they're running on 4 feet, that's very bearish. And then I agree that their skeleton probably couldn't be birdish. It would have to be pretty solid to maintain that bipedal movement. But what if they're running on 2 legs? Because ostriches run on 2 legs, and their birdie bones support them.
Yeah, I feel like in hearing your explanations, I totally agree. I don't think they have hollow bones, because bears' bones are so dense because they're so strong. And I was just looking at their stats, and owlbears have a strength of +5, which is beefy. So I don't think they're running on hollow bones. I was also wondering, because some owls are zygodactyl, so they have claws facing forward and backward, but they can change it to grip more forward. That would be a really interesting adaptation of the owlbear.
That would be interesting if they can rotate the paw.
Think about that grip strength,
Advantage on
dexterity
grapple.
and strength.
Or
Yeah.
if they had like the couple toes facing forward and then just the one hallux in the back.
Yeah.
Could a bear paw do that?
If it's
Well, it's basically an opposable thumb. So now I'm thinking about the persona of the owlbear, and I learned that owlbears mate for life, which
Yeah.
first of all, I thought was a darling introduction from the monster manual that you're including, like that they're so
Yes.
monogamous.
What is the mating ritual then?
Yeah.
Do they give pebbles like penguins? Because that would be adorable. The new manual does talk about regurgitation, though. Like they do spit up like pellets and things like that that contain like bones and gold coins.
Oh.
Could you imagine dissecting an owl bear pellet?
Kevin, I feel like we've talked about so much, but your Nat 1 has yet to go.
Yeah. Oh, right. I know. I mean, so I was thinking about all the species of bears, and I agreed with like what you said, Mike, that these are likely modeled after brown bears, and there is some polar bear connection, it sounds like, with some of the manuals. But I was thinking about like a panda bear, in real life, right, is 100% herbivorous. Could there be owl bears that live somewhere in these fantasy worlds that are actually herbivores that could have evolved in that way? And then a lot of bears have this connection with fish eating, right? So whether it's a polar bear, and not just fish, but marine animals in general that they're consuming, but also like grizzly and Kodiak bears and things that are hunting salmon and wading into aquatic systems to hunt. Then also not to forget the other, like the sloth bear and the spectacled bear and the sun bear, which I feel like the 3 S's. So for me, when I try to remember the 8 bear species of the world, which does float through Kevin's mind at night for some reason.
But keeps Kevin up at
It's-
night.
I don't know why.
I
don't know,
also
it's
put sloth, spectacled, and sun bear together in a group in my head. Yeah.
yeah, you do, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm always like, I can remember this because it's 3 S's. And then you got like the colors, right? You got like white is the polar bear and panda is white and black. And then you got the brown bear, and then you got Asiatic black bear, and then American black bear. I think that's all of them.
So could you imagine if it was a sloth bear with that tongue?
Yeah. Like
Because
eating
owls
termites
have-
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Owls have like a tiny little tongue that doesn't do anything, but a sloth bear has a tongue.
Do you think that owl bears are keystone species?
I think
Because I know a lot of bears and owls are keystone species. They have
Yeah.
claws for digging, so they're aerating the soil. They're predators, so they're managing populations. And they're probably apex predators, if not for dragons. So anyway, here's my hot take.
So one of the things that the manual talks about is they do take over dragon dens.
Whoa.
So
Once the dragon's gone.
once the dragon's gone, I'm sure
Yeah.
they're not
Okay.
eating dragons.
No.
But
But
So there's also some extinct bears that are worth considering. I was reading about the it's a giant short-faced bear that was 14 feet tall that is no longer around. So that would be pretty fearsome.
yeah. Also, that sounds so rude to name it that. I don't know. That just
Fur-faced
sounds like an
giant bear.
insult.
Fur-faced giant
Yeah.
bear.
You're giant, but your face is short.
Ew.
So then
Or
with
call 'em out
something
on
like that,
something.
rival a dragon. In
Maybe
some
a young
sense
one.
that maybe not an adult, adult or ancient, right? But
Yeah.
a young one, maybe.
This makes me wonder also how many trophic levels there are in the D&D universe, because like you got so many monsters eating other monsters, eating other monsters, just climbing up, Like in North America, we typically just have like our plants and our deer, and then maybe used to be wolves in certain areas, still in some areas, but that's about it, right? 3 levels. I feel like in D&D we've got like 7 to 8.
I also feel like we're spanning every ecosystem right now. So trophic levels and then the subspecies within each biome. Yeah, I think there are like owl bears that live in jungles. Could you imagine? Ooh. Camouflaged?
They would be sun bear, sun owl bear.
Sun owl
They
bear.
would be so little.
So, and we haven't talked so much about the owl species. I was surprised. I did not know there are 220 species of owl worldwide. They're in the tropics and temperate and boreal and all the deserts, of course, burrowing owls, which are super cool.
I was reading a Reddit thread in preparation for this podcast, which is the most informative one could be. And there was a thread about considering owlbears monotremes, the platypus, because they exhibit behaviors of multiple different species, which I thought was really fascinating because, Mike, you said they do lay eggs.
Yeah. And so I think one of the upsetting things about owl bears too is they're considered a monstrosity. So they're not technically like beast or things like that. So when you get into the idea of druids can wild shape, technically can't wild shape into an owl bear. So
that movie was
form-
wrong.
It
But-
looks so cool though.
It looks
It
so
looks
cool. That movie was
and I've
awesome.
allowed it. As a DM, I've allowed it. They've been created by some weird, crazy mage that, mashed them together. But is it really a monstrosity, right? Is it truly a monstrosity? And this is where all those like regular D&D nerds are going to be like, it's absolutely a monstrosity.
I'm playing a druid right now, and I want to make sure I built this character to be a barbarian. She's a drow named Onyx, and the second she surfaced, she became a druid through the wonder of nature. The first thing we fought was a den of spiders, and I was like, I don't think they're the bad guys. I think we're the bad guys going into their den, and
Let's
that
move
just
them
became-
outside.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did.
Conjure a very large glass and put
Yeah.
them over.
So anyway, I want my husband to listen to this, so he, as the DM, will let Onyx become an owlbear. This is good. Thank you so much for laying the groundwork.
Absolutely.
So does it then, Cassie, you started to say, like, if you could wild shape into an owlbear, would you then know exactly all the things we've been wondering about? Like, what is their courtship and all the things, like
Oh.
how far is their range and where is their den and where do they hunt at night?
I don't know if you'd know it per se, but you'd know like my feathers do this when I twitch this
Yes,
muscle.
just like
or-
intuitively.
Yeah. Or you might, encounter a real owl bear as your owl bear, and they'll essentially teach you how to owl bear.
How are owl bears communicating with each other? How are they interacting with each other? Are they marking their territory?
Yeah.
I feel like they must be more bear-like in the way they communicate.
I feel like they would communicate with an owl, but I'm interested to hear why you think bear.
I feel like the more we're having this conversation, the more I'm realizing this was just a bear, and then they took the coolest things from other organisms and then spliced them in. So, like for the owl, that's the sense of sight. Feels like that's bear dominant, owl recessive. But that's just me.
To the point of vision of owl that you're just mentioning. So keen sight, like a lot of light in. So the manual talks about they usually come out at night. They emerge from their dens at night. So great sense of nighttime vision, right? What about the head swivel?
Mm.
Are you sitting with a bear
How
and
many
trying to sneak
bears-
up behind the bear and the bear just totally turns its head
Because
around?
owls can do 270 degrees or something,
270.
right?
Yeah.
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 I vote yes.
Because
I
that would
love
be
that.
a cool trait to include, right?
Well, guys, I think it's about time to reveal our real world monster analog.
Whoa.
Yes, to the owl bear. So this is a unique creature, and it is the Blakiston's fish owl.
I love it.
It really does look like an owl bear.
It also looks like it's wearing an amazing headdress.
Maybe for that display, like we're saying, courtship or something, or
Yeah.
alarm, who knows what, right? So this owl is a fish owl, right? So it has like a 6-foot wingspan. It lives in China, Japan, and far eastern Russia in the cold. And it actually flies down to streams and it kind of hops among the rocks and uses its talons to catch, small fish or even large fish. And there's only 2,500 of these estimated to be left in the world.
Wow. You know what I was reading about owls in general that I had no idea before this podcast was that their ears are often asymmetrical, so they can perfectly pinpoint where something is. And that particular picture, I felt like I could almost see that it was asymmetrical because the feathers make the ears so pronounced.
Kind of. Their ears are underneath their feathers, so they're like tiny little holes in the sides of their head. So they are like if you dig through the feather a little bit, you could see that they're not quite even. But yeah,
No.
the tufts of feathers are more for an emotional display. So they stick them straight up if they're really excited or interested in something, or they're like, I'm big and scary. Look at me, I'm bigger. And then if they're scared, they go flat back against their head and you can't see them at all. And they're like, I'm tiny, I'm hiding.
I was gonna see if we want to segue into some educational connections. How do you all think we communicate about the exciting real world of owls and bears to people?
Well, my first thought, and I always talk about this when I'm working with teachers and students because there's such a fun experiential learning component, but real world fun contests that you can be a part of, like March Mammal Madness or Fat Bear Week. If you don't know either of those, definitely Google them because those are really fun ways to get engaged with the actual adaptations and behaviors of these organisms. And they're not just mammals anymore. It's silly that they still call it March Mammal Madness.
I think Papyrus is on it this year. Yeah.
I was even thinking using like the food and owl pellets to help figure out the organisms in our ecosystem and then maybe do some data collection around those organisms that we find.
Yeah. One of the things that I like to do yearly is, we take the owl pellet and, we look at what's there in the trophic level. What is the energy level in that biome that they're fulfilling, through the measure of the owl pellet and what they've been eating. Not that I think we could dissect owl bear pellets. Like this is an arm of a goblin. But we've used a lot of storytelling in our ELA. So there's a couple of us in my school that do play D&D, and we are forever DMs. In my class, we'll do storytelling through conservation. So we're writing a fantasy campaign, and the whole point is you're going to go in there for something like this. You find the owl bears, and you're meant to go there and destroy them, but you're looking around and you're investigating and you're finding out all of these little biological components of the owl bear. You're realizing, oh, this is not an evil animal. And where do you take it for the real world of, we're analyzing, well, predator prey populations or mesopredators and apex predators and where everything fits. Sometimes you have the ideas of, well, this animal's mean and evil because it's hunting and killing other animals, but it's just, well, let's put it in its place and its role. It's getting food for its offspring. It's trying to survive, and you can look at those storytelling aspects.
So conservation connections and like having played Skyrim like 1,000 hours in or whatever, and I'm always like running through the wilderness and there's like a wolf chasing me and then I shoot it with my bow because that's fun, but I'm like part of me is the ecology side is like, no, that's like the 500.
It's just trying to feed its pups. Like, yeah.
I mean, take its pelt.
I definitely done that to a group playing D&D. Cassie, I think you were part of that where when I fought the owl bears and then they found the owl bear nest and there was a baby owl bear in there and it was like, oh no, what did we do?
Part of the game is the combat, I know, but like, yeah, you start to wonder. And Cassie, what about you? Any conservation connections you think of with what we're talking about?
Yeah, for sure. I go straight to, because we do work with native wildlife a lot in my current role, that you could put up an owl box in your backyard, in your home, in your school. There are different size holes and boxes for different size owls that you're attracting. So everything from tiny screech owls to the great horned owl, which is the largest here in North America. So putting up a box is great for them because it provides nesting habitat where we're starting to lose a lot of that nesting habitat, which is why a lot of these species aren't doing as well and are in decline. And it's a great source of natural pest control for you because they're eating all the rodents and sometimes snakes, sometimes venomous snakes. So it's really cool to have owls in your backyard, and it's a great way to learn more about the species, put a camera in there and see what they're doing. And then with bears, mostly keep them away from people is the best thing we can do with bears. Admire them from a distance. So there's some really cool bear-proof bins that you can put out if you live in places where there are bears, particularly black bears. Another application could be an enrichment building competition for your local zoo. See if you can build something for their bears or their owls. Good luck with owls because they just don't care about enrichment.
I would also suggest animal webcams. There's a lot of great, associations that have bear cams and have owl cams. A great opportunity to do some data gathering activities where you could, view these animals outside of disturbing them in the wild or getting into their space, where you can watch these webcams and gather some data points and see what kind of questions you can come up with and learning activities. A great way to start a conversation with everybody and anyone.
So, guys, thanks. This has been so much fun talking about owl bears and biology and the science. One thing I wanted to just like wrap up with is if we want to go around and share like one fantasy thing we're into right now, perhaps one science thing that's sort of scratching the itch for you in those categories that we all seem to love so much.
My science thing, I went to South by Southwest last year and I met the astronaut Katie Coleman, and I got a signed copy of her book. When she was up on the ISS, she used all her journals to create an autobiography, and it's so user friendly. I actually gave a copy to one of my nieces for the holidays because it's so accessible and incredible to just know that people have gone beyond our planet.
For my nerdy things, besides D&D, I do like, doing cosplay. So I've got the Philly Fan Expo coming up at a point. I'm going to meet all 4 hobbits. So many of them are going to be there, including Orlando Bloom, and everybody is going to be there.
Oh my God. 12-year-old Rachel is
going to be there. Like, everyone is there. It's crazy. But I'm gearing up to finally do a cosplay that I've wanted to do for a really long time. Cassie, what about you?
So we are right in the beginning of purple martin season here in Florida. So I've been doing a lot of purple martin research and working with the migratory birds that fly all the way from Brazil to have their nests here. And they're all across the eastern half of North America. So wherever you are, purple martins might be where you are too. And also learning a lot more about the tracking technology that we use in order to figure out where they're going and learn more about the species so we can help better protect them.
In terms of fantasy, I mentioned Skyrim. I'm actually playing Oblivion Remastered now, which I never played Oblivion. So that's a lot of fun. Guys, this has been so much fun. So thanks again for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're our DM, Kevin. So thanks for organizing the campaign.
All right, folks, with that, we are going to quietly back out of the den before we end up in a regurgitated owlbear pellet full of bones and gold coins. We survived our trek through science and fantasy, proving once again that the real world is magical too. Please take a moment and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a session. Until the next time, keep your perception checks high, respect those apex predators wherever you live, and stay wild, adventurers.